Do you start on Monday and lose about maybe 5 pounds of inflammation by Wednesday because you've quote unquote been good? Are you over fasting? Are you under eating? Are you one that yo-yos? Hi there, welcome back. Has eating low calorie and low carb failed you? Are you struggling continuously to take off that 10 to 20 pounds of stubborn belly fat that just won't budge? I'm going to talk today about the peri and menopause. I'm going to say mostly menopausal women that are eating really well. At least they think they're eating really well. See, there seems to be a really high demographic of menopausal women, just like you, that are doing everything right and not having the success that they should have in terms of getting rid of that fluff, that extra belly tire, the weight that just won't go away, the bloat, all of the things that just make you feel ick in your body. When you put your clothes on, you're always searching for that perfect outfit to make all of that fluff go away because you frankly don't deserve it. Sure, we definitely have maybe lowered our activity level and maybe not realize the amount that we're actually eating. I'll ask you first off, how long's it been since you've actually lost weight? Are you one that yo-yos? Do you start on Monday and lose about maybe 5 pounds of inflammation by Wednesday because you've quote unquote been good? And that means usually a very low calorie diet. I don't really want to say non-nutritional diet because a lot of you do know how to eat. And you're eating clean for the most part. But maybe you are struggling with what the heck am I supposed to eat? You've tried it all and you're not successful, or you've been mildly successful and you fall off the rails and you gain it all back plus 5 more. That's a situation we want to kind of steer away from, obviously. My name's Connie Rutledge. I'm a functional nutritionist. I'm a fat loss specialist, and I really enjoy helping menopausal and perimenopausal women kind of tick the box on figuring out what's going on with you. There are so many scenarios. There's the low-calorie dieter. There's the chronic faster. There's the inconsistent type who just can't quite dive in and get the job done because of cravings or your appetite's all over the place. There's metabolically really inflamed types that will need a little extra TLC. I feel it's really important to kind of understand who you are in terms of what's going on with your physicality. If you're thin all the way around but have a spare tire or a big belly, then that's going to be a little bit different than someone who maybe is more athletic and just eats too many calories. If you've been someone who's been chronically dieting for 25 years and you'd never feel hungry and you still have weight to lose, well, there's another, there's a fix for that. If you've been on a GLP-1 and done great with, maybe you lost 20 pounds and stopped taking the peptide, well, then a lot of times there's a carb creep, or you're not really optimizing your nutrition and things are not working. Maybe you're gaining weight. Or there's just the general, you're back and forth doing great things and then you're not, falling off the wagon and then climbing back on. I mean, that there's a lot there. So what the heck? And how do I, in one video, give you some information to remedy the issue of stubborn fat loss? Understanding hormones. When we do have lowering estrogen, then our body's going to be less egregious to carbohydrates. That doesn't mean we can't have carbohydrates. We then need to eat appropriately, and we need to move appropriately. A lot of times I feel that if you have really restricted for years, or at least had the mindset of I just can't eat, what most people eat because I'll gain weight just looking at food. There's a reason for that, and it's not a quick fix. It's something that we need to maybe really drill down and learn. I'm going to ask you, start with pen and paper and track what you're actually ingesting. Are you over fasting? Are you under eating? Because that's a huge piece. If you have been chronically over fasting because you thought, maybe it worked once upon a time, and you've literally slowed your metabolism down, then you've got work to do. It's almost like reverse dieting, and that's a kind of a wild concept, and there's a lot of fear involved there. So today we're going to talk about blood sugar. We're going to talk about how you will start working towards the fix piece. We want to be sure that you're digesting properly. How do you feel after you eat your meals? Do you get full really fast? That's another piece to the puzzle in terms of inflammation and microbiome and the way that the engine's working. How's your gallbladder? Do you have a gallbladder? There's a lot there. So first off, I'm just going to ask you to get really clear on how much you're eating. I have a macro calculator. If you've had a Jumpstart, then go back to the booklet that I sent you and do the math. Get clear on how many calories you need. I'm not big on calories, but you know what? It's a measurement, and studies say that most people eat about 400 calories more than they think they eat. And that might not be you, but if you're not really tracking and you're not really giving it a good, I would say, nudge in the right direction in terms of data, then I would highly recommend you do that to get started with. And do that for 3 to 5 days. Don't try and lose weight. Just jot down what you're actually eating. When you learn how many macros you're actually getting into this engine, this body, and you understand that maybe your caloric intake is 1,200 calories and you weigh 150 pounds, that's not enough energy for the body to actually do all the metabolic things that it needs and still lose fat. I'm going to introduce, and I've talked about a keto mojo glucometer before. It's been a while, but I'm kind of back to basics because I've had a few clients that have really not understood or not really utilized all of the tools that we have at our disposal. So the Keto Mojo is it's a little device. You definitely have to prick your finger. But there are strips to measure your glucose. And that's going to give you information about what happens after you eat a meal. And even having that kind of data to learn how your body, and a lot of it is your microbiome and your activity level, how that body processes said foods. Low carb is one thing, but we do need to kind of shake it up because you can't eat low carb 24/7 year after year. Your body really needs to be kept guessing, and that's the biggest misnomer. That's why in the past I've said the 5-1-1 rule, where 5 days a week you're pretty close to eating really clean, You're careful about your protein intake. You're careful about your carbohydrates and fats, and you're really kind of just at that level of how much your body needs, maybe not too much of a deficit. And then one day a week, you shut down that fasting. I mean, you shut down and you completely fast. And I'm going to say maybe one day a week, maybe one day a month, but that long-term 24-hour fast is going to be a real game changer if you're healthy and if you have fat to lose. And if you have trouble getting into the fat burning, category, the fat burning zone, meaning your blood sugar is still very high even after eating low carb and all the things. That tells me that inflammation is in control and you're really having trouble. Maybe the liver is sluggish. Maybe you're just not moving. Maybe you're eating the wrong types of food. So having the glucometer and the availability to know where you stand metabolically speaking is golden. I'm curious about where my glucose, my blood sugar is right now, and I'm going to do some testing. Let's see. I ate breakfast this morning. What time is it? Okay, it's about noon, and I had some sausage gravy, homemade sausage gravy, and a medium banana after my coffee and cream this morning. I've also had lots of water. I had a great workout, and I'm wanting to see where my glucose, my blood sugar is, maybe 4 hours of fasting, and to see what I want to choose for my next meal. So I've got the Lancet. This is a Keto Mojo. I'm going to be testing glucose with the brown Keto Mojo's glucose strip. It doesn't hurt. This is a great way to understand how your body uses fuel. So I've got that in there. Take you along with me. This is a little, barely feel it. I'm going to squeeze out just a little bit of blood. Poke this here. Wait 5 seconds. I'm at 102, meaning there is glucose in my system. I had a banana, and I'm sure that increased my blood glucose level a fair amount. I'm just going to go ahead and for kicks and test my ketones. That's the nice thing about the Keto Mojo here. You get keto strips and tests for ketones circulating in my body. More information so I know how my body is using fat for fuel or not. A lot of times I see women who are super inflamed. You can't get into ketosis because there's too much inflammation. It's like the fat isn't oxidizing. Maybe you're eating too much, too often, the wrong types of food, too high in glycemic index. So there's a lot going on, and we can really use testing like this to see what's happening in real time. So again, I've got my little finger stick. I'll get a fresh little bit of blood. It goes right into the strip, and I'll see where I am. I don't expect there to be ketones. I do eat fairly low carb. I do, find, I've got 0.2 on the ketones. So there are some circulating ketones in my body. My body is using fat for fuel instead of all glucose. And that metabolic switch is really important to know that your body can use and shift from food that you ate, the sugar that you just ate, glucose, into burning fat. And that metabolic flexibility is exactly what you want. and getting a first waking reading. Prick your finger when you wake up after you've been to the bathroom, and find out what your fasting glucose is first thing in the morning. You can look at blood work in your CBC or your chem panel and look at the glucose. Typically, that's just a little bit off, in my opinion, because you've gotten up, you've gotten yourself together and driven to the lab, and a lot of times that marker is a little bit elevated. Stress is a huge piece, and when your body's stressed, it's going to produce adrenaline, and adrenaline is going to kick up your glucose even if you haven't eaten anything, and that might be news to you. For me, when I wake up, my blood sugar is just a little bit on the high side. Sometimes it's in the 90s. Okay, if you're new to this, then you're not going to know what I'm talking about. You wake up in the morning and you drink a glass of water, wash your hands, prick your finger, and you test your glucose. It's going to give you a number. It's going to be between probably 70 and 100. Or above, depending on how metabolically stable or healthy you are. So typically, we want it under 90 if you want to be using fat for fuel instead of sugar. And if you had gummy bears the night before, if you had sweets all day the day before, it's quite likely. And if you have extra fat, and if you have inflammation, and if you're not super duper active, then it's quite likely when you wake up in the morning, your blood sugar is just going to be a little bit high. For the most part, your body's still using that sugar from last night. It shouldn't be that way, but there's a lot of stored sugar in the body if you're not metabolically stable. So you have that morning glucose reading, meaning, you test yourself. You see it's about 90, and what's next? Well, you can either eat a high quality breakfast if you eat right away. But most of us at this stage, if we've been chronic dieters, we've been told to, don't eat breakfast and save those calories for later in the day. That's not actually the best idea anymore. It used to be, but we've learned most women who have stubborn fat are better off having a small something in the morning to get started. And you know what? We were told breakfast is the most important meal of the day. I beg to differ, but I can't argue with studies. I don't like to eat breakfast, but you know what? I'm doing a better job. At least get some form of nutrients in. Sometimes it's if I'm heading out to the tennis court for 2.5 hours of pretty solid play, I don't really like to eat breakfast. Or if I'm going for a 40-minute workout, I don't really like to have a full stomach. So I will do something like maybe an egg yolk in my coffee with some heavy cream, or some optimal aminos and some electrolytes. And that's just maybe a couple days a week. But the other days, I will maybe have some scrambled eggs, or like a paleo pancake, something with plenty of protein, a protein smoothie with my favorite Equip. I will also do a protein smoothie with either Equip, or I think here I'm using Noble Protein, the vanilla. I usually don't have many carbohydrates in that protein smoothie, but sometimes I'll have a small banana or some strawberries or blueberries, maybe an avocado. It just depends on what I have lying around. Here I'm having a little bit of A1, A2 milk and water, ice. There's a half of banana and a scoop of Noble vanilla protein powder. And that's a great start to the day. It will give me energy. It won't fill me up so much. That's something that, that works on occasion. You can do leftovers from last night, maybe some chicken and vegetables, or just some protein. That works too. When you eat, your body should respond. So an hour after that meal, even if it's a small meal, it could be whatever it is, I want you to test your glucose. And if it's been a while, if you woke up at sunrise, say maybe 6 a.m., you pricked your finger and tested your glucose, and it's about, maybe it's 90. Then you had some coffee and got busy with the morning and didn't eat breakfast until 8:30. Well, maybe you want to test your glucose one more time before that meal, especially if you're new at this. You're going to want to get a reading. Did your blood sugar go down in that 2-hour, time period, or did it go up? Usually for me, it goes up because I'm a champion faster and that's stressful on my body. It's a hermetic stress, sometimes good, sometimes not so good, depends on just how my body is nourished. But as a rule, you should have that blood sugar trending down in a healthy metabolism as you get hungrier and hungrier. So sometimes you get a little workout, maybe you're outside enjoying sunrise and pulling some weeds or doing morning stretching. Maybe you're indoors doing some housework and it's time to get something, some food in. Go ahead and test your glucose and see where you are, and then eat a little something, have your meal, and then maybe set your cell phone timer for an hour after you're finished eating. Then you're going to want to measure your glucose one more time just to see the impact that meal had on your body. If I have a protein smoothie, typically I don't have much of a bump at all. If I have something more starchy, maybe a piece of sourdough toast or some fruit and or another type of grain with not a lot of protein, then I'm going to see a pretty good spike in my blood sugar. That's data. That's what you need to know, how your body responds to the food that you're eating, and learn what does less impact that satisfies you so that you're able to start the ball rolling utilizing stored fat for fuel instead of trying to burn up all the sugar that you ate in that said meal. And then that's the fun thing about the keto mojo, because you can then get a ketone reading, because ketones are what the liver makes when the body's burning fat. And that's a really interesting piece to the fat loss puzzle. If you have absolutely no idea what ketones are, then let's talk, because it's a lot of fun to just kind of feel how energetic you are when you have ketones circling through your body. That's another conversation in terms of that deeper fasting, so that your body can utilize all of the glucose and really shift into fat burning. When you're in ketosis, the Keto Mojo has that ketone measurement. If you have never measured ketones, or you're unable to get into ketosis, then it's going to take a little bit of work and effort to clean up the body well enough with inflammation and stored sugar to tap into stored fat. And that might be a real reason why you aren't successful in losing fat. Okay. What is blocking? Is it inflammation due to autoimmune? Is it inflammation due to dietary practices? A lot of times I'll say, for what I've learned in the past. Maybe dairy is something that is inflaming you. It's an easy protein resource, and a lot of us that are looking for a quick, small meal will rely on dairy for protein and fat. It's creamy, it's delicious, and it tastes good, and it's super easy. But if you're having yogurt and cottage cheese and maybe a little cream cheese and some milk and or just cheese in your day-to-day, and your blood sugar's too high and or your inflammation is too high, then my suggestion would be to delete that for 2 to 3 weeks. Maybe you do, you're on this path with the Keto Mojo. Speaking of Keto Mojo, I forgot to mention, I have a 10% discount on the bundle. You're going to spend about $100 for the machine, the lancet, the ketone strips, and the glucose strips. And there is in the description box a link. And the Keto Mojo website's amazing. If you don't have one of these, I recommend it, especially if you struggle with fat loss. You will want to have this meter available. I use it all the time. Not all the time, but I use it several days a week because I'm curious. I'm the curious type. I like to know what happens to my blood sugar after I slip and eat, a handful of gummy bears that the kids brought. What happens if I have an ice cream bar after dinner? How high is my glucose going? And can I really afford that? And it's good to know these things so that you can make a decision and a judgment call. And it's not that is, you're a bad person for deciding to eat something off plan, because that should happen. I mean, we should have agency to eat whatever we want. But when I know that certain things will skyrocket my blood sugar readings and I don't recover right away, I'm going to make a better choice for sure. I don't want the scale to jump up 3 pounds the next day because I enjoyed something that wasn't that good. You know how that is. I'd rather feel good. There's also something I'll just share, the CGM, the continuous glucose monitors that you can strap on the back of your arm, or, diabetics use them when you have somebody that's concerned about pre-diabetes. Maybe your doctor will prescribe one. In fact, you could ask your doctor for one. The biggest caveat with the CGM is that it's Bluetooth, and it's fine because it'll give you great data. But you're getting a hit of, you're a Wi-Fi, meter if you have one of those strapped on your skin, because it transmits into your phone. And so that Bluetooth is kind of radiating you. And I would prefer, especially if you maybe have some experience with blood sugar, that you use the Keto Mojo, because there's no EMFs, going to be cycling through you. But you decide, because if you have access to a CGM and you don't have any idea, you've been struggling with fat loss, you're eating low calorie, you're doing all the right things, and you're inflamed, then I would highly recommend you find a CGM and give it a go. If not, play with the Keto Mojo. I'll go over all of the other things that are imperative to fat loss and keeping that fat off. You need to make sure your battery is charged, and that means you're sleeping well. That's probably one of the biggest things. If you don't sleep well, find a way to do so. Don't eat before bed. If you're eating super low carb or super low calorie, then you want to eat enough so that you're not feeling off or wonky at bedtime. You're not starving at bedtime. But you don't want to be full either. So there's that sweet spot. And sometimes it's kind of tricky. We want good signaling. You don't want to be watching TV with naked eyes all evening long, and then with bright lights overhead. You want to be in dim light with lack of blue light, interrupting your body's ability to make melatonin, because that is going to give you a deeper sleep. Are you exhausted? Did you get a terrible night's sleep, or did you not sleep last night? You're going to need way more fuel in order to run the ship. And you're going to be hungrier. You're going to be really kind of all over the place in terms of that trigger, your stress. Stress is a huge component, and if you haven't had a good night's sleep, then the stress is going to be absolutely, on point. Another important piece to a healthy metabolism is how much are you moving? Are you getting your activity? Are you sedentary? Another great reason why I wear the Oura Ring, because I like data. I like to make sure I'm getting over 10,000 steps a day and all my exercise in. I'm a fidgeter anyway. I like to stand versus sit. So that makes it easier to kind of use up that non-exercise energy. It's the acronym is NEAT. Non-exercise activity, something or other, and having a sound exercise routine, getting outside, grounding, absorbing the energy from Mother Earth, being in nature, at least a couple hours a day is so important to the bottom line in terms of mitochondrial energy. Your diet is important, but your lifestyle is more important, I'm going to say. Eating a really, solid diet, meaning, you're trending towards high protein. At least for most of us, we want around 90 grams of protein a day. That seems ridiculous, especially if you're used to eating one meal a day. Well, that could be a problem. You've got to kind of allow your body to take in as much energy so that it has the, it doesn't make sense. If you've got 25 pounds of stored fat hanging around your body and you are eating one meal and a snack a day, doesn't it make sense that you would be using fat for fuel and using up all that stored fat? But it doesn't work that way. So when you have the fuel gauge is low, meaning you're not really putting energy into your body, it has no choice but to conserve. And conserving isn't, finding the stored fat, in your arm to fuel your body. That happens after like a solid metabolic reset. Because we work hard to give the body enough fuel. And I'm not saying if you're only eating 50 grams of protein every day, and you've done that maybe for a year because you've been, quote unquote, trying to diet and get this weight off, or not. Maybe you've been eating way too much, but had a chronic under eating situation. If that's the case, then we need to incrementally increase the amount of protein. So if that means you have chicken breasts for dinner because, quote unquote, you're trying to be good, it's protein, right? Then you're going to need a chicken breast plus a quarter, and maybe start slowly, or you're going to add in another scoop of protein powder. I'm not going to say add, some cottage cheese in there, because I don't know if you're going to be sensitive to that dairy, but find ways to increase your caloric input so that your body has enough incremental calories and fuel to do, to feel safe again, to start burning. And it's remarkable when you have enough food on board after chronic dieting, how you'll have more energy. You'll sleep deeper. And it just kind of trends towards that much better outcome in terms of maintainable fat loss forevermore. So kind of wrapping up, because this is getting long, the low-calorie dieting is detrimental long-term. A calorie deficit, well, that's anti-aging and not a bad thing. But again, I'll say, the body is definitely best when it's kept guessing. Same with your exercise routine. And I'm pointing out there because I exercise in that garage. When we know and when we practice the 5-1-1, I don't even think I finished that whole concept. 5 days of maybe you do a 13 to 15 hour intermittent fast, and you eat 2 to 3 meals consistently with plenty of your macros on point, right? On display, it's non-negotiable. You're going to get your 90 to 100 and, whatever it is, grams of protein. You're going to get your carbohydrates where they should be for your energy expenditure, and the fat is in line, right? So you're eating to be satisfied. You're eating to have energy, and you're eating for your actual basal body metabolism requirements. Then where am I going with this? Yes, I was talking about the 5-1-1. So that's 5 days or the majority of the time where you are pretty much, kind of doing a steady cadence of how you eat. 1 day a week, you might want to fast completely, 24-hour fast. You eat dinner or you eat breakfast, and you don't eat again till breakfast or dinner, whichever meal you choose. Okay, so that is going to do a whole bunch for metabolic improvement. And then that next day, the next one is no fasting. You're not going to worry about much in terms of how you're eating. It's a feast day. It's not go crazy and binge. It is eat things that maybe you've been wanting to try. It's when you go to a party. It's kind of just having a lot more freedom with what you're ingesting, what you're eating. So that 5-1-1 is a very valuable resource in terms of how you think. And I think the problem is we have been eating low calorie, doing chronic dieting for so long that we're unable to, we're not building muscle. We're slowing the engine down. The thyroid is taxed. Our brain is taxed. The body is screaming for energy, and it can't use fat for fuel, which doesn't make sense, but it's the way it is. And when we are kind of shifting back and forth to eating pretty solid and then not eating and then eating more and just kind of changing it up, then you might really have some traction. You might have some momentum. You might have a recipe for success in terms of long-term reliable fat loss. If you have inflammation that doesn't make sense, then we need to do some blood work. You need to kind of drill down in terms of how high is that inflammation. Remember that A1C marker on your labs is going to give us information. If it's over 5.3, we need to learn what's going on. Why is that? I mean, is your blood sugar all over the place? Then we have our answer. But if that's not the case, then there's another issue going on, and you're not going to have success until you tackle that, or at least have some awareness of it. Autoimmune is high and mighty right now. We've got toxins, we've got EMFs, we've got all kinds of assault on our menopausal kind of aging body. And we need to have support. We need to have awareness. We need to have tools on board to be able to right the ship. Okay. All right. Well, we talked about the keto mojo. We talked about, how to eat better so that your body has the right blueprint, the right information. Timing is everything. Activity. Maybe there are types of foods that you want to avoid. Not forever, but just so that you have kind of a leg to stand on in terms of awareness and knowingness. I know you're working hard. I know it feels like nothing works, but when you have better information, it's going to be easier. And it's not that you don't have motivation or willpower. There's a lot to hang your hat on. You're upright. You've got a lot going for you. Let's just take one more step in learning a little bit deeper, diving deeper, and enjoy success. Okay, I'll tell you this. I love what I do. I love diving deep in terms of learning more about our human body, which is a miracle. Honestly, it's so much fun, but it's also very frustrating for many of you. I see it. I hear you. Don't give up. Okay. And if you're curious about how I work, reach out. I'll chat with you briefly for free. And check out my website, ConnieRutledge.com. I have a free newsletter, and with that free newsletter, you get my Metabolic Reset handout. It's a downloadable PDF and easy, super easy, and free. So start there. And if diet is something that has you stumped, I'm your girl. I would love to see you on the schedule and talk it through and give you some tips and tricks to get healthier, because you deserve to be healthy. Get happy in your body wherever you are. Okay, decide that that happiness is a choice, and you've got this. All right. Come for the fat loss and stay for the longevity. There's a lot here. Go to my website, ConnieRutledge.com. That's where the newsletter is. Subscribe to the channel if it makes sense for you. And yeah, come and see me. All right. I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.